Welcome to the breakdown. And you're muted. Look at this. We are on a roll today.
Did you unmute me now?
I
Am I
did. Okay, let's start over. No intro.
No intro? See, did I just say to you, I'm like, I don't think we need the intro. And then
She
there we
messed
go.
it all
Poof.
up. She
I
jinxed
messed it all up because Johanna wanted the intro.
it.
But
Was. I was like, oh my God, I have to do the intro. And then it got all screwed up. And I was like, I didn't share the screen. Nobody can hear me.
It's usually how it happens, right?
Whatever.
Too funny. So we are on episode 114.
No.
Oh no,
Nope.
we're 113.
See,
We're
we are way ahead of ourselves.
We are 113. You're
113.
Right.
And
We're
I'm
episode
Johanna
113.
Burkhart. I'm Johanna Burkhart, the woo-woo queen.
And I'm Tanya Lee. Your average Josephine, I assume.
You
So we
assume?
are, I assume, right? We are going to be breaking down and looking inside psychic readings tonight. Because what, Johanna, I think it was last week you had put out in the comments to see what people wanted to talk about. And that was the first thing that come out. It was a question on what's the difference between oracle cards and tarot cards. And
Right.
You had said, well, maybe we'll break that down. I said, well, I think it's going to be a little bit more than that because there's so many kind of readings out there. And are people aware of all the types of readings that are out there? And there's no way in a million years would we have a long enough show to go over every detailed ones, but we decided to focus on a couple that obviously were the interest, which was the oracle, the angel cards, and the tarot readings. But we thought it would be
to name a few. I didn't even there was so much.
There was just so much on there. And one of the things that I wanted to focus on was the breakdown of not just what a psychic reading is, but the kinds that are out there, meaning that there are some that are structured, meaning that there's traditional where they follow specific things that have been defined and answered already, meaning they have defined meanings. So when you think of like dream interpretations and even tarot and numerology and astrology and those types of things, these are things that already have defined meanings for certain things, symbolisms and symbols that there's already a definition for, that's been kind of passed on from generation to generation of what some of these things could mean.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting about that is through that there's also the unstructured psychic advisors that use their sensory, their energy readings, their intuition to pull out some of these structures as to how they feel when they're around the specific people that they're reading. So some of these traditional tools that we've been using can be used also as just a sensory reading. So, even with some of the differences, I mean, perfect example are angel cards. I had no clue what angel cards were about 2 years ago. As a tarot, I mean, I read tarot since I was a teenager. I was always fascinated with it. It was something that I always, read by the book and kind of things and went through, but I didn't really know what angel cards were, oracle cards. I never went into that. I still have a fond memory of one of my friends who had said she reads angel cards, and she had brought me my first deck. And I was like, well, this is like tarot. I was like, this is like what it is. But it was completely a different feeling from when I read, when she was reading angel cards for me. And I said, this is interesting. And then I was started to dive into other things. But some of the things that are outside of card readings are also, we had brought it up because you said you didn't know anything about tea leaf readings. And I said, when people read grinds from the teacup,
Yeah.
that's part of
Oh, I
tassology.
can't wait to talk about this one because it just blew my mind. I was like, what? But I have my own takes on stuff. So I really am fascinated by tarot. I like to watch tarot. There's like 3 readers that I watch on not on a regular, but like once a week I'll catch them, their videos. But the way that, they use the card to, I don't know. I just feel like it's something you learn. You learn tarot. It's not something like you trust. You just receive the information. Like even with Oracle, people learn to read Oracle cards. And I guess it's just my personal preference where I'm just like, I never learned. I just look at a card and receive a message. And most of the time the message just the card just confirms the message I already received, right? But it's a good, they're like training wheels for me. That's what I like to call it for people. Oracle cards are training wheels. That help you with your intuition. But tarot is so interesting to me because there's so many different kinds of decks that are mind-blowingly confusing. And there's so many levels within the levels within the levels. And that's why I like that we brought on a guest, because this person, you know, she's really, that's her kind of one of her things. And so she can really dive into it. And you're a tarot junkie.
I am. I'm a complete tarot junkie. And it was funny because when Johanna had said to me, she goes, well, you're going to go over tarot. And I said, but I have somebody that I want to bring on. And we're going to introduce her and we're going to bring her on briefly. But her name is Jody Thorpe. And Jody and I met about 2 years ago. And actually, I was looking for not a tarot reading. I happened to be looking for local products. I was looking for oils and just local things like soaps and stuff like that around here. And she happened to have a store with her sister online. And I was looking at her products and I had gone to her bio. And it's just like one of those things that how law of attraction works. At a point in my life, I was kind of into energy, like learning about energy and how it affected the body and so forth. And I remember I was reading her bio and she had done Reiki healings on there. And so I was really interested on there. So the thing is with Jody, she doesn't have one title. And that's what I love about it. And same thing with you, Johanna, you just don't have one title.
There's like, so funny. I was doing my press kit today to send to another radio station. And I was like, there's like 15 things behind my name. This is exhausting. I just want to hit delete after all of it.
So I would like to bring her on if we can. I know that you got a click of a button, but we're going to welcome Jody here on with us, the herbalist, the tarot reader, the Reiki healer, the sound meditation healer. She's a lot of things, and she's going to tell us a little bit about that once we get her on. And I see that we have guests on. Thank you for coming on, guys, on live chat. Make sure you hit the like button or the notification if you haven't done so already, that little bell, so that you can be subscribed to the show. And hey, we got Jody.
Us. So you can watch us screw up when we go live. It's so much fun. Yay, Jody's on. Welcome, Jody.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited that you're here. And I just have to take a moment because when I had started my spiritual journey, and it's been almost like almost 5 years at this point, but about 2 years ago when we all met, I kind of met you both, Johanna and Jody, at like 2 months apart.
Oh, really?
It is really an amazing point right now to have you both right here. Like I would never imagine that 2 years ago I would be in this spot. So it is really awesome to feel that and to have two women that have inspired me to follow my dreams, who followed their own dreams, and to see what they do and their passions and their love and what it's grown. And Jody has grown so much. I mean, she is co-owner with her sister for Mystical Blossoms. She has her own storefront right now she had her big grand opening, almost 2 weeks ago? Yeah. I mean, she's come really far. So it has been amazing to watch her grow. Johanna, you started from doing, more of almost like a life coach to like, I mean, I can't even go on how much healing you have done and how profound you have been for everyone. So it's really interesting. And I'm just in awe just being here with you two, both.
Well, thank you. And I have to say, Jody's products, that I've actually purchased the products when I was up visiting Tanya, but also online for one of my healing retreats that I did. And it's amazing stuff.
Yes, Jody, can you tell us, because I think that's one thing that I would really like to describe to it before we get into tarot, is what you do with your products, because you had said to me even last night is you infuse a lot with not just the herbs and so forth, but you're putting a lot of energy in there, whether it's with crystals and things like that. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, like I'll give you an example of the other day. I woke up and Mondays are supposed to be my days off. I do tend to make stuff because we're still catching up after the grand opening. And I went to a field and I was hiking, and then it was kind of like I got a message like, okay, let's make a flower essence. Flower essences are a lot different than essential oils. Essentially, you float a flower in water, and that water captures whatever emotional thing that flower wants to do for us as a person. So I made one called Detached, and I think it had a lot to do with, I'll go through themes with clients, like I'll be reading, and then all of a sudden, like right now, there's a huge theme with like old boyfriends and old relationships and past life stuff. Like it's just come in this boom. So it was like spirit saying like, okay, let's make something to help people detach from some of this and see it differently. So that's kind of what I do. Today, someone was in the store and they were like, where did you do the research and do all this? And
I love that question.
because most of it's channeled.
Yep.
You know, like my sister makes soap at night. She, you know, lights her smudge, she plays her music, and she just, you know, that's her thing, and that's her time. And, you know, that's where I think the herbalism and the tarot and, you know, the Reiki and the crystal bowls, I think it all kind of intersects and, you know, meets, and they play nicely off of each other. And I would definitely say, though, just like I see a theme, do you guys know that every year we go to a different tarot card? Like there's a theme that year?
No, I don't know that.
Okay. So this year is the Hangman.
Hmm.
So 2019 is the Hangman. And this is definitely what people are struggling with. So it's sort of, you know, perception. So when like their ex-boyfriends or girlfriends are coming in, they're like, oh, does that mean that I have to be with them again? And it's like, not necessarily. Like, you know, maybe what is it that they represent to you? What is it that we have to kind of like work through? So that's kind of how the herbalism and the tarot, I think, play off of each other.
Yeah. I love that you were talking about how the relationships and in the detachment, because as an energy reader of, you know, a grid keeper, basically gatekeeper, that's what I've been doing over the past month is timeline hopping with my clients in my sleep. I do more work in my sleep and than during the day lately. And it's been cutting cords and helping people in other timelines heal their relationships, you know, so that they can be free of that here and change, you know, that perception and see it differently. And so I love how everything kind of, even though it's a different classification, right? We call it tarot or astrology or, you know, just channeling it or whatever you want to do. It all is similar in a little bit of a different perspective. You know what I mean? So I really love that.
And it's
tarot,
mixed.
I think tarot is jumping forward and backward on that timeline though. Like, but I do think, you know, if you believe in the Akashic records, like all that, I do think that sometimes I want to say, like when you give a reading, you know how you're supposed to be like completely detached afterwards?
Yeah.
Some readings I will remember like 90%. Typically because there was a message in there for me. Like I feel like spirit, because you can't usually read yourself. It's very difficult. But if someone comes to me and they're struggling with something, their reading may mirror my reading, you know, and it may help me. But we will see people that they'll come for guidance and they're like, well, I already knew that. I already knew that. I already knew that. And then do you feel like they kind of like throw it all away because they kind of like want to see what's going to happen if they go in this other direction? I mean, granted, we have free will.
Yes and no. I see it two different ways. So I read really differently. So I know the answer, and this is just, it's because it's part of my mission, but I know the answer, but I will present it in a question to where they get the answer, because I find when people figure it out on their own, they hold on to it more, just like, you know, when a kid buys his first car, they're going to treat it better, right? Same thing. So I tend to try to phrase everything in that perspective. When I find that I just give people the answer, so two things happen. One, they throw it away, you know, or two, they don't believe it, or it's not what they want to hear. So they completely go in the wrong direction. Then they hit the resistant wall. So it depends, but I generally won't tell people the answer. But I do get a lot of people who come to me who there's always a message in it for me. Always. It's always in that collective energy. I feel like almost all readings in a sense has some type of, otherwise we wouldn't be in resonance with it at all. You know, I always feel like there's something in there.
I think too, when we're of service, and we're doing things from a place of service, I think sometimes spirit's like, and here's a little something for you.
Yeah, that too.
And then you're like,
yeah. I had I had done a reading with someone recently, and one of the things that I find when something comes up, it's usually also there to help you give them the message. So they might bring something up in there where it might trigger something of a memory, and you go, why is this memory coming up? Oh, like because it's something that you're feeling, and you can feel it really deeply when you're talking to somebody in that level, because you have that understanding. So it's a lot of empathy, and I think that's part of the journey of being healers and intuitive, is that we've already had somewhat of that experience to be able to give them that healing advice for that. So that's something that I know that has changed with me with tarot readings, because I was a pretty structured standard tarot readings. I didn't really do it intuitively. I was more like, okay, this is how I used to have. I had a spread. This is what I did. I read meanings. This is what this book, like that's, I know my cards really well. I know the numbers. I know all of that. But when you put it unstructured and make it intuitive and send someone, a whole new door opens on there. And that's like one of the things that I noticed too, like, and I would like to get your guys' take on it too, because I don't know if people, like, how do you feel about you pulling in the natal chart, with some of the signs and so forth, especially with astrology on there?
Well, for me, I don't do astrology, but the funny thing is like I said before, is, I look at what I do and just reading the collective energy, and it always lines up the same as somebody who's reading an astrology chart. It's always they might know the planet and that it's because of this, where I'm like, I don't really care what the cause of it is. Like, this is what's happening and this is what you're going to feel. And this is what you can do to help yourself. But I'll listen to people that do astrology. And I do use it a tiny bit when I work with my clients, like especially the North and South nodes. But I find, again, it lines up. It's, you know what I mean? So it's amazing to me. I love I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's
like
confirmation.
For instance, I have I'm a Libra, but like when I'm looking for relationship advice or anything, I usually go with my moon sign, which is, the relationship kind of sector, it's emotional. And I always resonate with Taurus. It's actually, if I were to look in a horoscope, I'm like, man, Taurus is like down to par to what I'm going through right now versus my Libra.
Yes, I don't do any of that.
But and I always find that interesting. And I know a little bit, Jody, you bring some of that in with birth dates and stuff like that. But how do you think that affects at all the readings that you do? Or sometimes do you think it's just not too important to bring that in?
I think that there's a couple different ways to read. Like one of them, I think initially what we want to do is we want to study and learn everything about the card and flip it over. And this means this and here means that.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day we just kind of throw all that away, but we remember it deep in our heart. And then we start to get really intuitive. And then I think there's two things. You can either be really good at astrology and then get into tarot, or you do the flip, and then naturally I use like astrology more and more and more. And it's just, I'm so fascinated about it. Like I'm going to be 42 in June. So I'm hitting my Uranus opposition, which usually means for people like this major change and transition. And I'm like, oh shit, I've had enough of that in my life. But I left my corporate career after 18 years,
Yeah.
and my identity, and my daughter's 18, so she's an adult now, and I'm like, who am I anymore?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to line myself up with astrology so I can prepare myself the best that I can, if that's even a thing, which I think tarot does too. But I definitely do use it in readings.
Yeah.
I can see it more and more. Like the Chariot card, for example, is a person that's a Cancer, and
Right.
my girlfriend's a Cancer, and I feel like when she wants something, it's just like go, you know,
Right.
and so
Yeah.
intellectual. And I mean, I love Cancers. I just think,
Yeah.
you know, there's
I call myself a triple threat because I'm a Cancer. I'm a triple water sign. So sun, moon, risings, all water signs.
Right.
So
Okay.
I can be a lot at times.
And the minor cards kind of give that too, because you got the minor cards. So you got the cups, which is water. You got the wands, which is fire. You got the swords, which is air energy. So, pentacles is earth. So
And
like
I'm an
that
earth element.
helps. That helps actually bring out more messages, because you can kind of, once you know even that, and like Jody said, like I'm at that stage too, Jody, where I'm starting to see more of that and numerology.
numerology.
And I'm just like blown away with how more it's like the more you learn, the more you get. I also never used to back in the day, I always used like one deck, but now I validate with other decks too, which is it's so much fun, because when you validate with another deck, it almost brings a whole more elaborate story up front. So I've done that now too. And
Well, there's so many different decks. So like, okay, so yes, I have this new deck. It's a creepy tarot deck. This is
I love that deck, by the way. She hates it. I love it.
I was drawn to it, and I'm like, I don't know why I don't like this deck. Okay, so my new obsession is my galactic light. Where's the box? It is my light language deck.
Oh, that's cool.
It has 3 different ones. So this is the one I'm drawn to right now, and this is the it's basically the Earth Keeper, the Gatekeeper card, Grid Keeper. It's what I am. So it's pretty. The symbol has been they've been showing me this symbol for like 3 days, this kind of stuff. But then I also have my Oracle. But when you were talking about numerology, like certain decks, like I use them for the numbers, not for what it says on there. So
Perfect.
I would resonate more with when I pull this.
Beautiful.
It's the number 44 that I needed to see. And that 44, I don't even know what it means, but it triggers something inside of me and all this information comes. So different decks do different things for me. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, I'm going as far as because I love cards in general, and I have gone because of numerology, and just to get more familiar with numbers and to remember, I use a deck of cards. So I literally use, it's called cartomancy, and you're just using playing cards.
I've seen someone doing that. I was wondering what they're doing.
And it's amazing how many messages come out of that just from knowing that, the numbers and so forth. But it's the same thing. I mean, you're still intuitively reading the meanings out of this. But that's why I say to people, like, don't get hung up so much on what you're using, what feels right to you. And as you grow, even if you are a reader, you grow, you start to get, into different things. I mean, I think one of the biggest questions always ask, and Jody, I even asked you this question, and it wasn't that I was expecting an answer, but it was like, it's not that I was testing you, but I was testing you. Because I always ask this to readers, so what deck do you think I should pick up? What deck? Because most will be like, oh, you can start with the Rider deck, which I think is what you had, which is a great deck to start with.
That's
it really is.
I typically use though. I typically use the, you usually see me with this deck. The more
yes, yeah.
Well, what deck do you recommend if someone wants to start with tarot?
Always the Rider weight.
Yeah, the Rider one is the one to learn the cards is great. But when someone says, I really like what do you think would feel right for me?
Oh, that's your choice.
And that's what she said. And then that's always the trick question, because I always love to hear it when the readers, when they say, oh, you need to pick the deck, because there's an old folklore saying that you weren't supposed to pick your deck. If you remember that.
What? Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
So it's just supposed to be gifted. So it's so funny because my cousin recently gave me a reading and I said, where did you get these cards? And she said, now our grandmother was like she was very special. Like she was definitely a medium and she channeled all kinds of things, but she was like way, way above her time. And she would take me to get tarot readings and say, don't tell your mom. Like, this is our thing.
Why didn't I have that one? Come
Oh
on.
my God, she was hysterical. So she gives my cousin a deck of cards. And I'm so pissed. Like, I have my grandmom's engagement ring, but I'm like, fuck, like I wanted a deck of cards. Like I didn't want, like, you know, because it's like it's like being crowned queen.
Yeah.
Like queen of the tarot. Like I wanted that. And I just was like, how many years have you had? Like it just opened up all these questions and you know all that. And now my daughter started reading tarot. And the thing that I have to say is some of the best readers are these newbies.
Seriously, I'm listening. I follow them on YouTube and I'm always like,
no filter. And that's the way to really, I mean, listen, there's 78 cards in the deck. You can remember all that and that's amazing. But when you lay those cards down and you just say to yourself, go, and you tell the story and you let it unfold and you're not like, okay, this card in this position means this.
Yeah.
And means this. And you open yourself up and you allow this connection between you and that other person. Beautiful things happen. And some people, they might not agree with the story and that's okay. You are the messenger and you deliver that. And later on, they might come back and say, remember when you said this? And I try to tell people, this isn't from me. Like, they'll say, you told me this. And I'm like, but I didn't, you know, it's just a message that I'm giving.
Well, let me ask you something about tarot, because with Oracle, I could pull this card. Oh, we don't want to do that card. All right. I could pull this card for each of you and I'm going to get a different message, right? Because the card really means nothing in the way that I read. The number is going to give me something, and there may be something I'm drawn to in the card, but for the most part, the story is going to change for each person. And is it the same with tarot?
Oh my God. It's so cool. So I have my card laid out. I want to find this one card. Okay. So this card, sometimes this card means that you're being cheap and stingy and you're not spending money. I once read this card and that's what I love. Like the more you do it, the more layers you get. I once read it that someone was trying to protect their power.
I could see that. I could see that for sure.
Yeah. And then yesterday I had a reading and the lady, she was so stuck in her job and so satisfied with it that she couldn't see this other job that wants to come in within her job. So that's the beautiful thing, is the evolution. Like I kind of say that my spirit guide plays Pictionary with me. And like, there might be something similar from 3 years ago, you know what I mean? But it's really, and there'll be a symbol that I'm like, damn, like,
or you don't realize you've seen it before. Like you've never seen it and all of a sudden it pops out. Yeah. I have a deck called The Dream of Gaia. Do you guys have that? Have you heard of that deck? It's beautiful. And it's a little bit hard to read because they have extra cards in there and they're not all you know, necessarily the traditional. So sometimes I get hung up on the traditional. But you know, they have specific cards that you can read as like really happy cards. And I had a similar situation where I had a friend and I was reading the 10 of Cups. And now 10 of Cups is a great completion card. Like, it's like, oh my God. But at that point, when I was looking at it, I was like, this is the saddest motherfucking looking card I have ever seen. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, it's like you completed something, but you're not really happy. And like, I'm reading it and I don't, at this point, you want to say traditionally, this is what this card means, but you're looking at it going, no, what do I say? And of course you say what you think is coming on there. And it was on point. It was on point. So sometimes you just got to go with what you think it is or what it means to you. You don't get so hung up on there. And I have another funny story. where I was at a Comic-Con, and I love going, like they have readers sometimes there, and I'll always go there. Right. And I keep trying to get Jody to go to a Comic-Con. I was like, you got to go.
Game of Thrones people there, or any Viking, like
Yeah.
Viking stuff.
You got to go. So I went to a reader, right? Now, every reader is different. Sometimes they want you to touch the cards. Sometimes they don't want you to go near the cards, everything. Now, this particular reader had 4 different decks molded in one giant pile.
I've seen people do that.
Okay. And so she's like, this is what I want you to do. I want you to, and then I'm like, well, there's so many different, and they were all different sizes, and I'm trying to like touch them, and I give them to her, and I'm like, okay. So she's reading for me, and it didn't really resonate, but it was okay because at that, like, I'm familiar enough to go, okay, well, maybe she's not reading me. Maybe she's not reading me. And it wasn't really a private reading because I had people like next to me reading, so like you could hear you. So it wasn't that private, which is fine. I'm totally okay with that because I was just kind of like, so what's in store for me? You know, being open. The funny part is the woman behind me, the message that we were getting, she kept going, this, like, I feel like that reading was for me. And I was like, I think it is for you. That's what it feels. Because, and like, it was almost like we needed to swap places at that point. But I never get hung up if something doesn't resonate with me or if it doesn't feel right. Then I just go, okay, well, the reading wasn't for me. But it's not that I disregard that reader being a bad reader. It's just that maybe there's so much energy going wrong that they're not necessarily focusing on that, and they are picking up stuff.
Well,
so I never throw it out.
I can tell you 2 things on that. So when I do live card readings online, I use the cards more for distraction than anything of my mind. But what I notice is they draw me to people that are going to have more of a collective message that everybody needs to hear. Like I tend to because sometimes I'll go in order, but sometimes I'll skip over people and I'll just get drawn to somebody. And I always find that the reading that they are getting, I'll end up saying, well, this can be for everybody. Cause it is, they are pulling me to people so anybody could watch it and receive a message. But the other part of that is with the resonating thing, I have had readings where it didn't resonate then, but it resonated later. And it's because when your frequency shifts, when you hear that information played back again, now you're at a space where it's hitting. So resonant is just frequency hitting density and collapsing it, right? So once you get to that level and now you're receiving that same information, same thing. You have a client, I tell the same thing to over a year. The last month of the time we're together, it hits her all. And she's like, oh, I got it. And it's like, oh, good. You just made it, but it's that thing that you shift. And then later it makes sense to you. That's why I love recording readings and having them, because I can go back. Because when you're listening, your mind's going 100 miles a minute. Like, what does this mean? I got to go down that rabbit hole. Where is this taking me? What is this? It happens.
It's so true.
So you got to go back and forget everything.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens to me lately is spirit will tell me the end result, but I'm not allowed to tell the person. I'm only allowed to give them a few breadcrumbs and then say, well, what would happen if this? And it's hard because sometimes you're reading people and you really want to share with them, like, oh my God, you're going to marry this man.
But it could ruin it. Sometimes if you give it to them,
ready. They're not ready.
They can't handle it.
My friend told me about 18 months ago, she's been reading. I mean, she's amazing. Her name's Deborah. She owns a place called Aradia's Treasure in Merchantville.
Yay. We went to her store. I brought Johanna there.
Did you?
Yep. We met her.
Was that?
That was the store we went to. That's Deborah's store. The crystal store, the crystal shop we went to.
Oh, the one where I bought the giant Labradorite.
Yes.
Oh, she's so amazing. Like, just, she lives and dies, tarot. And we talk about the cards, and I come up to her and I'm like, Deborah, look at this. Like I tell her, I'm like, look at this, Deborah. This is the high priestess. I'm like, she took off her cape. She's ready to make a deal. Like, she's not. And she's like, you're stretching, Jody. You're stretching. But I'm not. Like, this is a romance story. Like, follow me. Like 18 months ago, she said, when I came to her and I said, Deborah, I just don't know what to do next in the business. And she said, I want you to know that you're going to have a store, have a facility. I never wanted a store. I'm a free bird. My sister, she wanted that. That's her dream. You know, so Deborah tells me this, and in my head, I'm like, that's not going to happen because I don't want that.
Oh, girl, we have a whole episode just on that topic alone.
Yeah. So to me, I'm kind of like, okay, like, but I took it and I filed it away. And then in the beginning of this year, I decided, I did my year-long tarot reading. Like in January, I think, you know, people that like follow me know that I do this, but in January I'll do a reading for the whole entire year. I'll put a YouTube video up because I want them to rewatch it. I want them to record it. I want them to remember, and to have that tool to fall back on, you know. So this year I did a spread for myself, but I kind of said, you know what, I'm going to surrender. This is like the year where I kind of, just surrender it. And then very early in the year, once I did that, something came up to basically get the shop, and Deborah came the opening, and no one was here. And she brought a gift bag, and she said, I told you.
That's like salt in the wound.
It was so, and it's so funny because it's like, we don't know. Like, I love when I read like men. I love reading men. I just think something about
I do too. I have the same thing.
I was a bartender for years. I worked in like a very male dominant industry. But I'm kind of like, it's kind of like telling a man like, oh, you're going to meet this woman. And he's like, you're crazy. Like, I don't want a relationship. But that's how it was for me with the shop. It was like, now that I have it, I'm like, oh my God, it's so nice to be able to have like a space to read, cards or whatever. So, I love them. I told you so readings,
I told you.
Yeah.
And that one of the reasons I love, like I've done several readings with Jody, but the last reading I went in with Jody, I came in and she's like, what do you want to know? And I'm like, I don't really know. Like, I have questions, but I knew I had questions. They were coming out, but I want to spend time with you. But here's the thing. When you find a reader that you meld with, they don't, it's not the fact that you don't even have to be friends with them or in that level. You trust them enough to pull out message of what you need to hear. And I can tell you always on par, Jody is always on and has the question before I even know. And sometimes I go in there going, I don't want to really know that. And then I go, well, I guess we're focusing on that.
Yeah.
That's why I like people to say highest and best. I prefer when somebody wants to know what's in their highest and best versus when they ask me a question. And before I didn't do it, give them an option. I just recently started giving them an option, but I found that when they asked questions, they were all superficial. They were all things that they were attached to, that they were waiting for. And that's the other thing I always tell people, like, it doesn't matter if you're getting a tea leaf reading, which we must talk about here in a second, or a tarot or oracle or psychic or, whatever, palm reading. It doesn't matter because energy changes so quickly and everything is energy. We are made of energy. If you wake up tomorrow, and this is, my clients always laugh at me, but I tell them, if you wake up tomorrow and I give you this beautiful reading and you decide you're going to go make grass skirts in Jamaica, your shit is all going to change. Like, let's be real here. So you have to be mindful of every decision you make, every choice you make opens up a pathway and it could change. And so a lot of times, I always tell people this information is always meant to be held onto loosely. Don't live and die make every decision by a psychic reader or by a card or by a pendulum or by whatever it is. Don't do that, because otherwise you're way too attached and you're not
like I'll tell people, like, you're not getting another reading, like, not breaking up with you, like, I'm you're there, But like simmer down. Like
Simmer down.
I've had to break up with healing clients because I've had to say with healings, there comes a point where any of this stuff is it's not a band-aid, but it resets you. It gives you to that space where you now have a level playing field, and now you get to make, clear choices. And
Right.
you just get a point where you have to put the tools down. You have to
And
just trust your intuition.
I think that's a good point, because I think what happens is people are looking for a quick fix, and
Mhm.
it makes them like a band-aid effect, that it makes them feel good when they get a message or something's coming in or someone validates it. That's one of the reasons, a little different for me, because I've always been interested into tarot, and I think it's more on a level of I'm just fascinated and I always like to learn new things.
I never asked for
Um,
reading. I just watch them.
I really
I'm a
do. I'm
voyeur.
the same way. I can sit there for hours. And I mean, I've been sending, like, Johanna and I would be sending stuff back, and she's like, how are you finding these people? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just lost in the world of like people reading. And I'm like, and it's entertaining to me. And I'm like fascinated in how passionate these people are in giving messages. And I love it. When I was younger, my mom she loved getting readings. She loved it. And I remember, and I still have the original mythology deck that was my mom's.
Oh, wow.
That I stole from when I was a teenager, and I took it, and it's something that I kept. And there's a reason why you keep certain things, because this is the one I always go back to, and I'm like, oh, I have a little piece of my mom with me. But I had the same thing of like wanting to know more about how people read them. And what I find interesting is when people get so hung up on it, you don't really need the cards. You don't need them.
No.
You don't need them at all. And in fact, you can sit with someone and just get to know somebody, or just, sense what's going on and be able to give them messages. But the cards are nice because they're there for validations. I've actually have, just with my friends, and I'm not doing this in a level of, how you guys are, but,
She will.
with
Don't worry. It will come.
with some of my friends, what I was doing is, instead of doing a spread, I was like just giving my messages and then using the cards as validation. And they would always pop up. Like I didn't have to worry about it or anything like that. I'd be like, oh, well, this is what this is. But so that was the way I started to do it. But it's so fascinating to see some of these readers, what they do, whether it's mixing the cards, validating. Some of them also read reversals, what feels right to them. The thing is that some people get really fearful too of these cards. And I wanted to bring that up because, especially Jody, you and I were talking about this, is like, what are some of the cards that are completely misrepresented that people will go, oh shit, that's something negative?
Well,
And
the
we
same
know,
thing with the Ouija board, though. A Ouija board's not negative, yet people will be like, "You're the devil. You're using."
they
the Ouija
will
board."
find something negative or something that's fearful in it. And I feel like, I've heard some people say, and I had a friend like this who says, I don't do tarot, I only do angel cards. They're too negative for me.
I get that
And
a lot. And
and
then
I was like, well, what? And now I didn't know what angel cards were. So when I was reading them, I was like, I don't know. I kind of see the
Where
same
did that come from? Do
negativity.
you know where that came from, Jody? Why they think that they're evil or whatever?
I think it has a lot to do with always, I think tarot is definitely divination, which stems from paganism
Mhm.
or being Wiccan, and the Christians.
She's a witch.
Yeah,
Yeah, but here's the thing. Tarot or however you want to pronounce the French word.
Is it French?
Yeah,
Or-
tarot is French, but it started off as a card game.
No, are you serious?
So it was an Italian card game in like the 1400s. It wasn't
How did
even
they play
used.
that?
Well,
It was actually very similar to the game Bridge.
I don't know how to play bridge either, so there you go.
So it's a very popular game, but what happened is and Jody, you can correct me too if what history you know from it, is that it's kind of like one of those folklore things where one country has something that they use and then they see a little bit more, because what was happening during this is because they were so enamored with the photo, like the pictures on there, the artistry, it became traditional of what they are. And if you think about it, it's the same thing with our cards. I mean, if you look at tarot and you look at playing cards, there's certain things in there. You got the king, you got the queen, you got the fool card. The fool card is also 0 in, tarot. So it's still something. You don't need the cards, but there's still meanings on them. There we go. We got the Fool card right there. That's actually my favorite card. The Fool card's one of my favorite cards.
This is my shaman.
You know?
This is my shaman deck. And actually, I haven't used this in forever, but these ones I will study the imagery, and there's a ton of sacred geometry
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
in these. And so,
Gaia deck has that too.
yeah. And so this is the Earth Warriors Oracle. And for those that are watching, but it's the imagery and the sacred geometry that's in here is what draws me. You know, there's a lot of sacred geometry that's in there.
Use that deck on me. I love that deck.
Yeah. And so for this, I get so much information from the card. And because you got to remember, as someone who does a lot with light language, that sometimes the light language is done via art, right? So you can see the different designs and everything in there. And so in this, the story really is in the card. Like the message really comes in that card. So
Yeah.
they're all, it's all in the deck.
Yeah. Now I have a question, because Jody and I were talking about we were talking about cards that are feared or something like that. I can't tell you how many people that I know fear the Tower card.
I'm one of them.
The card so that's
there you go.
the story that I want to tell. I do
Mhm.
want to back up real quick on the history.
Yeah.
I did read somewhere, and I truly, in my past life, I was somehow related to the Knight Templar. And I'm always female when I see myself in past lives. But anyway, one of the theories is that they had images that they would pass back and forth to one another. And they were the messages. So they were these cryptic messages. And I believe that that is part of what we see in these cards. You know, and the
Symbolism.
Templars were Christian, knights who, that's what they did. So to me, they're still part of Christianity in these cards. I know it, but whatever. We're all human. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what.
And there's people that if you said that wouldn't buy them because of that. You know what I mean? So you're never going to make anybody happy.
Well, my tarot teacher, one of the things that she suggested, I mean, when I learn something, I go all in. Like, I'm like,
yeah,
I'll listen to podcasts, I'll read books and all that. So she said, I want you to take a card and not put it under your pillow because it'll get mushed, but put it by your nightstand. So I pulled a random card out, and I pulled the Tower card, and I was like, oh, fuck. Like I don't want to have a dream.
I would have said.
No, turn that card back in.
Yeah. Well, did you ever see the meme where the guy says, you shuffle the deck, you get the card, and then you shuffle it again, and the same one comes out, and he's like, oh. So I pull this card, I go to bed, and at night I have this really unique dream, and it's with an ex-boyfriend, and I see him, and I'm like, in the dream, I'm like aware that this is a dream. So anyway, it's said, I see a card that is like a pink rose or a purple rose on one side, but the images changed on this card. It's the same two people, but it's Cinderella's carriage, and he's riding away in the carriage, and she's going like this on her head. And then I see broken engagement. So I'm like, okay, this card now tells me, and this usually comes up for me a lot lately for people if they're working for a company and they think like Office Space, they get bought out, and then it's like, we're not going to change anything. No, you're going to change everything. Like, just be. So when I see this and it's coupled with, maybe like a Pentacles card, then I'm like, oh boy, like something at work, will shift, or it comes up and, might come up with the Lovers.
Sure.
And you're like, oh boy, okay, there's something unexpected. And I think when we're delivering these messages, I want to say 70% of the time, people are like, I knew that.
Oh, yeah. For
But
sure.
I had a reading recently. When I get readings, I try really hard to get them by people who don't know me. Because,
Yeah.
they know too much. I'm very open. And part of the reason that I do this work is I share a lot of my personal stories because I think that's what being of service is about.
Mhm.
I'm not above anybody.
So true.
I'm very vulnerable with people. I'll put it all out there because if you can learn through me, please by all means do,
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I get this reading by this guy and he says something to me and I said to him, "You are the fourth person who has said this to me, but thank you because the way you said it permeated through me and I got it. Like, we're done here. That will no longer serve me and that will no longer come up and create a disruption in my life." And that's what it's about, giving these readings. Either A, we're telling people what they already knew and we're giving them this confidence, or B, we're delivering this message that is going to sit with them. They might not want it. I mean, I'm sure you guys have done readings for people. I don't think most people know, but I also read for a company. So I do a lot of like corporate things and I'm all over the place, Philly, over there. So I'm reading at a party once and it was a bachelorette party and the girl starts weeping, and this is supposed to be for entertainment purposes only, which I do slightly have a problem with, but.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's not.
Unfortunately for legalities reasons, you have to
But
do
see,
some of the things, but yeah, I get it.
To cry.
I get it.
And
I know.
I say to her, well, what's wrong? And she says, "This is too real." I said, "It is real."
Yeah.
Like, at no point did I say it, it wasn't real. And do you guys know what queen you are what queen are you? The queen of rods, the queen of swords, like what queen?
I'm the queen of swords.
Queen of swords.
What does that mean?
So she's a tough bitch. She's independent. She often has problems in relationships because she can be so independent she doesn't need a man.
I've only been told that, but not by tarot, but I've always been told that I'm a high priestess.
Okay. And then we have the Queen of Pentacles. She's like really good at work. Like that's her thing. This is the queen that I sometimes want to be.
The emotional cups. Is that cups?
Yeah. So I call her the baby high priestess. Like to me, she's the young high priestess. Yeah. So she knows when to bite her tongue. She kind of like sits back. She listens. She observes. She's fun, but she uses the information and she's just very Jackie O.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like that. Now I might have to steal that. It's very Jackie O.
And this is my Stevie Nicks queen, which I also love her, the Queen of Wands.
I want to be
Queen of Wands.
Come on.
You're like, I want to be Stevie Nicks.
I'd rather be Stevie Nicks.
The humanitarian. So Tanya, me and you were the bitch queen.
The bitch queen. Maybe that's why we get along.
Hold on, this is happening.
We got Miss High Priestess here with us. She's not even a queen. She's
what's so funny is I was before we got on, I was like, I knew something was gonna go wonky, so I had incense going. I put essential oils on, and I looked over, and there's my tiara, and I was like, I wonder if I should wear this tonight. I wonder if they'll see.
That would have been so good.
And then next to my tiara,
and come back.
Next to my tiara was my unicorn, horn, and I was like, well, there's also that too. We can change it up. We should have a hat day or
a mystical
crown day or mystical day. I don't
know. The one card when I always go, ugh, and that is to me this card, the Ten of Swords.
The Ten of Swords. I knew you were going to say that.
So, what does that mean?
When I pull this card for people, a lot of times I have to tell you what it means. It's at the end of, the difficult situation. But a lot of times it has to do with physical things. When we're not aligned or there's a problem with our alignment, we're cutting off like chakra. Because I'm connected with yoga, it's, to me, I'm like, okay, there's something that's misaligned where the energy is not flowing properly. So, I mean, it is a scary card.
Yeah.
But it's
here's the
kind of
thing. Yeah. And 10 is it's a completion number. So it's
like the shit's over. It's not
Yeah.
hitting the fan anymore. We're good.
Yeah.
We're past
Yeah.
it.
I'm no longer afraid of the tarot card or the tower card. I don't like the tower card,
Mm.
but I have now switched it from tower card to tower moment. So I'm like,
Tower moment.
this is a tower moment. The
Well-
world is falling down around me.
I actually love the tower card because, and when people get it, I go, this is amazing. People be like, what?
No, because I
is
was
why
at
I
your
say it.
house in New Jersey and you gave me a reading. You gave me a reading and the damn tower card came out and I'm like, shit, what's going to happen? I'm launching all this stuff.
You did.
I kid you not. Well, besides what happened that weekend, which we can't talk about, but I'm at the airport going home, and I'm getting a text message.
Another episode.
I get the text message and I knew, and I didn't listen to it. That was the one time I really did not listen to my intuition, but I got that text message and I got the stomach punch and I was like, that damn tower card. I know what's about to happen.
And this is why I love the tower card, because when shit gets to the point where it's faulty and it's not sturdy enough and it's not stable, the universe goes, you know what? Fuck this. This is not what you need. We are going to build something better. So we are taking charge. We are going to help you. I feel like it's almost like a parent card where I'm like, thanks, universe. Thanks. Because it's not supposed to be here. It's not serving me.
No, but I'll tell you, there's different levels. And to
Yeah.
me, there's different levels of these tower moments. So
Yeah.
it might not be so dramatic where I look back on my life and I can see the tower moments where every building around me was coming down. And then there's other ones where it was just like, I'm willing to hit the blow up button and watch it burn down. Right. So I feel like sometimes you get these readings or these messages. They're not, I don't like to use the word warning, but I almost feel like it's a heads up. Like you have an opportunity right now to open your eyes and make a choice. And when you don't do it, we'll blow it up around you and then we'll make it happen for you.
And that's the thing. A lot of times when that card comes up for people, I'll say to them, you know, this relationship does not honor you. You know, this job does not honor you.
That's why you're here.
Right. And if this job doesn't, or this relationship doesn't honor you and you feel that in your being, you can continue and allow something to happen that you will then have a recourse that might really set you back. You know?
Yeah.
Instead of looking at this honestly and opening up and clearing the karma and facing it head on, instead of just allowing, you know, it to, what you're saying, like blow up in the face.
Yeah.
You know, and especially with the job thing, like people will see the signs, but they're
in denial.
Change.
Well, I
Except
also,
for the people that love the Fool card.
Oh,
like, what's next? Like, what?
I love the Fool card.
Yeah.
I love it because it's brand new. It's like it's something new's coming in. I like it. Some people don't like it because it's almost like a new energy. The other card that I it's not that I dislike it, but anytime I get page cards for me, I'm always like, eh.
What's a page card?
Which page don't you like?
I'm not really into I guess it would be the Pentacles one where it's a very small gesture. It's like it's something that is it's there, but it's not quite there. You know, it's like I'm going to give you something, but it's really, really tiny and it's really, really new. And as much as I want to be grateful for something that comes in like that, it's almost like, give me something bigger, you know?
I think that he is the beginning of the cycle, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Like sometimes we've been in maybe like a lack mode where we're like, I'm missing or I just need. So a lot of times that card comes up for me where it's like, okay, your money situation is going to change. It's not going to be huge, but this gets the abundance rolling enough to where it raises your vibration and you can actually make shit happen now. Don't like say like, that's it. Instead, ride the freaking wave.
Yeah.
stoked. Let it raise your vibration and go do stuff. Now, this card, the first time I ever read someone, it was a male, and I read this.
Is it the Ace of Wands? I can't see from.
So it's the Page of Wands.
Oh, Page of Wands. Page of Wands you're looking at. Okay.
So I pull this card and I read, and I never forget this. I'll tell the guy, I'm like, oh, there's somebody really narcissistic at work that's starting some unnecessary, I'm trying to find that. Oh, starting some unnecessary drama. You see that?
Oh, yeah, the wands.
And my teacher's over my shoulder and she hears me and she said, wait, you got that from that card? And to this day, anytime I see this card, that is someone who is self-absorbed. I've never read it in any other book, you know, but that's what it means. But when I see that card, I'm like, oh.
Now, does it change for you when you change the decks? Because like I said, sometimes I look at a deck like that Dream of Gaia deck, man, it throws me off. Like I look at some of these and I'm like, this is aren't like, because I know traditional. So when I look at this, I'm like, what? This isn't what it means to me. But yeah. Do you feel like it happens a lot?
There's one deck that I got like a few months ago and I put down, and then my daughter sent me a message and she said, Mom, look at this deck that I just got. And she actually did a reading for me and it was so on point. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like my daughter's going to be, you know, so good, you know, at this. But yeah, sometimes it can, because, you know, the imagery on that and the symbolism and you know, part of the cards too are the chakras, like the colors and the numbers. And, you know, there's so many components that I think that it's just a lifelong, just like herbalism.
Well, this is what I think, you know, a lot of times I remember, you know, when I first started teaching metaphysics and spirituality, I used to get people who are newly awakened that would come to me and say, how do I read oracle cards or angel cards? And I always had a hard time with that. People always wanted me to teach a class. And I'm like, I can't in integrity teach a class. I see people do it all the time. And I'm sure there's an art to it, just like there is with tarot, but I don't read that way. And so I tell people, go to a metaphysical store, look at the cards, find the one you're drawn to. This is how you clear it. This is how you connect with it. Right. And after that, look at the, you know, shuffle the card, look at the card. And I always tell them, just feel it. Look at the picture, feel it in your heart. What is that? What is it telling you? What do you feel? And then if you need validation, then go read the book and pull out. It's a channeled, most of this stuff is channeled for a collective. So it's not going to resonate with everybody. There's going to be a sentence, a word, something in there that hits you, that resonates with you and validates the story that you're telling yourself in that moment by looking at that card. And so I always feel that when people watch these kind of things, and as I'm listening to it, I'm like, if I was new listening to this, I'd be like, I'm never going to read tarot or oracle or anything, because this is overwhelming.
Well,
it doesn't have to be.
Everybody does it to some extent, even on your everyday life. For a perfect example of this, as a photographer, even as someone who is passionate about art, photography, or anything, you can walk into a photography studio, you can walk into an artist gallery, anywhere, and everyone is going to have a different meaning of what that art means to them.
Yeah.
What it makes them feel. It is the same thing. It is the absolute same thing. It's the same way of looking at it, even with tarot. Even if you have something that's standard of what it's supposed to mean, I mean, that's a whole part of art, is how does it make you feel? What does that bring to you? You know, what kind of feelings it comes up? What do those colors mean to you? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. That's what's so beautiful to me about, you know, tarot or even oracle cards.
It brings it back to everything is energy, because even when I do energy transmissions, it doesn't matter what the words are coming out of my mouth. That energy, that frequency is going to meet you where you are. And it's going to be different for you and you and you and you. And it's going to be a little bit different, because the energy always meets you where it are. So it's going to be different and feel different. And so it isn't a universal thing as far as one meaning. And that's where I would confused with tarot because I would watch these readers and I would look at these cards and I was so thrown off. And I think it was because one of the first times I saw someone do a read tarot in person, I went to this moon gathering and she did just as what Jody was talking about. She read the card and what it meant and how it, and it was so unnatural. And I was so turned off by it. I was like, man, you just lost in my book. I'm heading out the door.
Wow.
She asked me if I wanted a reading. I said, no, because I'm reading these people as she's doing it. And I'm like, nope.
Well, listen, there's going to be certain people. I actually have a story, and I know we're getting close to the end of the time here. We're almost a little over, but when I was younger, my mom was very into the Ouija board, the tarot readings, the palm readings. Like when we used to go to the shore, that was always the big thing where you would see someone dressed up as like a fortune teller and be in their little tents. And I remember as a kid going in, my mom was getting a reading done, and I was young, and the lady had said that she was going to pass away at 72. I told her that. It stuck with my mom. I mean, my mom was living off that date. And let me tell you, she actually passed away earlier than that. But like it was one thing is I remember like my mom, when we were talking about, we were actually joking about it because when she got sick and everything, she goes, I just want to let you know that reader, she didn't tell me the right thing. And it's like one of those things. I mean, we talked about it too, is like, what would happen? Because, Jody, have you ever been to New Orleans?
It's funny you say that. It's on my list. That's
okay.
Well, I want to go so bad.
You would love it. And the history there is amazing. But when you go there, the energy there is, because there's just so much history there and the energy is really bizarre. But what you find is there's an influx of readers on these streets. Like everywhere you go, there's a reader, there's someone doing it. Cause the voodoo, the magic, everything, they got everything there.
Like South Jersey to me.
Yeah. It's like, it's that, but amped a little bit. Right. Mm-hmm. And when you're going around the corners, I said, Johanna and I were joking in the last episode. We're like, what if we took one question and just had a load of money and asked the same question, and how many different answers would we get? And that's the thing, is you never know what people are going to read out of you or what's going to come out of that. But what are some of them, before we, head out, or what are some of the most common questions? Is it primarily relationship that you could deal with, or is it more career oriented, or is it just so different from perspectives? But what are some of the most common questions?
It's usually career and love. They're the top ones. But what I have to say about that is sometimes they're actually parallel. Someone comes to me and says, I want a reading about love, and I'll throw the card or place the cards down, and their job's a clusterfuck. I'm like, get your shit together at work, and you got a chance at love. But you can't bring someone into this because your job's a fucking mess, and it makes you a mess. Mm-hmm. So let's work on that. And then spirit will hijack it. Like I remember one time.
Oh, spirit will hijack for sure. If there's something that has to come through, they will be like, nope.
So I read cards at this winery, and I'm giving a lady a reading, and I'm telling her about her husband. Her husband's the breadwinner, and something's going to happen at his job. So I'm telling her, and then she gets so mad at me. And she was like, my husband's not here. I was like, ma'am, this is going to affect you. Like, this is going to affect your relationship. I'm like, and they're preparing you for you to go home and tell your husband
and go get a job.
To save money. Like, right. And she then went and got a reading by another reader, which whatever. I'm not attached to that.
Yeah. You can't be. I mean, here's the other thing too with that is like when you have, someone who's fixated on getting specific answer, but then your cards come out and it's a completely different story of what they need to hear. Do you find that that's hard too and challenging because, sometimes somebody wants to know about career, but everything's coming up in their love life and you're like, oh, well, these are all, love cards.
I tell people, I personally, when I don't really do readings anymore, but I used to tell people like, listen, this is not me speaking, this is what needs to come through, and it is what it is. Right. And I also know somebody who he doesn't do cards or anything. He does readings, but he's given a bunch of my friends recently readings, and they're all pissed off because it's not what they wanted to hear. And they're all mad about it. And it's like, you know what? It's what you needed to hear. And this is my motto in my business anyway. I will never tell you what you want to hear. I'll tell you what you need to hear. That's just what it is. But people get pissed.
Well, I think this is a good perspective too for people who are readers, because sometimes the people who do have these gifts become fearful of using them because they become appeased in the level of they don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or it's not something they want to hear. What advice would you give to those people? What would you tell them to follow in that sense?
It's not about you. Like, I mean, first of all, when I first started reading, I was like a closet psychic. But I read everybody that would pop, like, last year I must have done thousands of readings, because when I work for the company, I might read 80 people in a night. So, you know, there's a lot of readings that transpire, and people do get abrasive, and you cannot care. Like, I read at this one event, and there was a bunch of lawyers, and it was so hard because the questions were, okay, he's my husband, but I have this boyfriend. And you're like, and I'm like, I got to pull myself out of this energy and not judge this person.
Yeah.
You know,
I want to talk about that too.
And it's hard because I am human, but I am this human messenger, you know, and they're like, well, what about my boyfriend's wife? Like, how does she feel? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, you know, and that's, it's very, it gets you sometimes, where sometimes you're like, why am I delivering this message? But some people, it does help them. And that's the thing. If you can help someone, it's worth it, you know?
And I was really hoping you were going to say that, because I think that's something that, it's so part of us as being healers is to help other people. But I also think it's important for us as healers to help other healers out there who are afraid to use their gifts, in the sense that they don't want to hurt someone, or they don't feel like it's necessary, or it might not help them. That every message that you do get could be beneficial, and that would you not take that chance to not say that message, and not be able to help them in any kind of sense? It might not be in a level of warning, but it might just help their energy. It might just help them move on or evolve.
I will say with this is, and I'm a big proponent of being as clear as channel as you can be. Here's the thing. We're all channeling information all the time. So whether you're using a card or no card, and you're just bringing the information through, just like certain, angelics or galactics or fairies, it's going through a consciousness, your filter. So if you have hardcore belief systems, if you have belief systems that these are my beliefs, if you live in any kind of box, if you have any of these filters, right? If you believe that tarot does this, or you believe religion stands for this, you are going to filter that message through your consciousness and deliver it that way. So if you are in an energy of judgmental, if you are going through a relationship issue, if you're going through a shitty time in your life, if you're having a bad day, if you're sick, if you're any of these things, or if you get a client and you're like, well, I don't believe any of that. If you are in that energy, then your reading is, in a sense, going to have, I wouldn't say tainted, but it's not clear. And sometimes people will tune into someone's fourth dimensional desire field instead of what's in their highest and best, because they haven't reached a level of discernment where they're discerning, is this what's in their highest and best? Is this coming from a higher presence, their higher self, or am I reading their mind and their desires? So
that's a big problem.
Yeah.
People are channeling these lower entities, and from a place where their ego is attached. So
which is the lower entity, I will say, in my perspective, it is the lower vibrational parts of you.
Yeah.
And, I think it's really important, like, before I start a reading, there's a ritual and a process that goes. Even if I'm walking into a reading party with 80 people, there's a prayer that happens before
Mhm.
each and every reading, whether that be on the phone or this. I'm not to judge that person, and it can be really hard. But there's a whole process, and I'm delivering messages, and I'm also tapping in, and I'm protected, and there's, pure energy, and,
Yeah.
certain
Yeah.
angels, and, Isis and this person. There's a whole prayer and a whole process. But I think that is the one dangerous thing with some of the newer readers.
Sure.
I mean, I witnessed one person who was about to do readings for people for the first time, and I said, "Hold on a second. What prayer are you going to say?" And they were like, "Oh, I don't know." And I was like, "Okay, write this down." And we walked through the process, and I think she looked at me like I was crazy because she's like thinking I'm competition. No, no, no.
Mm.
We are all here for
Yeah.
one thing. We're people, and we're in it together. Whether
Yeah.
that's, Ouija boards, tarot cards, like there's good in
Amen,
all of
sister.
it.
And that's
That's
why
a really good message.
I tell people you do the work. You do the work, because if you're going to be a healer, if you're going to be a psychic medium, if you're going to be a reader, do the personal work on yourself, because if you're living in that box, you're not being of service to anybody, including yourself. So do the work to get out of the way. It's and of course to do your ritual of sacredness and connection to the divine, and however which way you want to do it. But to be open to all possibilities, and not be, it may not be something that you follow in your life, but if you're hardcore against it, it's almost blocked in a sense from you receiving it. And so that's where my thing is with people. I say, you want to go read and stuff, that's great. You can practice, you can do all that, but do the work for yourself. Do it for yourself. Get the work done. Get out of your own way, and then go out and give to the whole world.
Yeah.
You have to do it for yourself first.
That's a great ending, like
Can
higher
I
self
ask
message.
another question though?
Yeah,
I know, but we're a little bit over time.
it's fine. Nobody.
That's all right.
Okay, so I do want to ask this. What is your take on reading and having an energy exchange? Like, okay, if you read and you're reading, obviously one of my, professionally, I get paid to read, but like, what is your take on that? Like energy wise, like, do you exchange readings? Like, what's your?
As far as me personally,
Yeah.
I mean, I have done energetic exchanges, but at this point, I don't do them anymore. I charge a fee, and that's it. And I do base it. I do call it an energy exchange because it is. And but I feel like it's subjective, and that there's times when somebody needs help, and I will just give the. Here's the thing. This is a great example, and she may be watching. My Tuesday nights, I go to yoga in town, and she's Reiki certified, and she does all these other things. She just mainly does yoga though. But she wasn't really communicating with her guides and her higher self, and tuning into that. So they kind of picked up on Tuesday nights at this time, she's going to be at this place. So about 30 minutes beforehand, I would start downloading a damn message for her. And I was like, son of a bitch, here it comes. Okay. At that moment, am I going to be like, you owe me $50 because I just got this message? No, I'm going to tell you the message, right? It's just the thing, what we do. I'm always going to be of service first, but I firmly believe in time is more valuable, since we've created this box of time that we put ourselves in. It's a whole nother episode, but it's more valuable than money, And so we do charge for things, but with friends and coworkers, we'll sit there and read for each other or whatever.
That's my message for the new readers. I want people to understand that it is important.
Your gifts are, this is what my team just got done telling me yesterday. Your gifts are sacred, and they are priceless. You are not here to be a doormat and to give everything in your body and your energy away. It is valued, and you get to choose who you share your gift with. It is a gift. You are here to be of service to humanity and raise the consciousness and help us all. but that doesn't mean that you have to give it all away.
That was my number one lesson at 37 years old.
That's what I want newbies to get.
Yeah.
Course, like when people, especially when people come in here and they start talking to me about the flower essences, there
Mhm.
are times when I channel a message, but they don't know that I'm just channeling. But I see these new people say, well, this is a God-given gift and I want to like give it away. And then they're exhausted and
Mhm.
they don't continue with it because it's, you know,
Yeah.
This
And
is
this is
boundaries and
yeah.
discernment. You get to decide. I used to go out in public and have anxiety attacks and think that I was getting swallowed up by loved ones who were trying to come through for people sitting in a restaurant, you
Yeah.
know? And it was like I had to learn a routine and ritual where, listen, I'll say, listen, Linda, my rope is up. I
love
am
when you call
off.
out Linda.
I am off duty right now. I am not going to go over there and give a message now. So it's just one of those things where we came here to be human for a reason. So we have to be human. We have human constructs that we have to play with in this reality. And if you want to be of service, unfortunately, we're in a space where physical money is something that we need to survive.
Yeah.
And so to be of highest service, we need to make money so that we can give more. The more money I make, the more I give back.
Yeah.
that's always my theory too. Like, because then I can choose where that money goes.
Yeah.
Right. And I just want to say that this business practice that you guys are talking about as the average Josephine can go for anything, anything. It's not just spiritual, for anything. Don't give away any of your passion in that sense. It's all valuable. It doesn't matter if
Don't give your
you
power
are a
away.
writer or a photographer or a newscaster or anything. It doesn't matter in that level that, what you give, make sure you receive it back. You are valuable. You have that self-worth, and everyone's gifts are utilized in so many different ways. But it's true, especially with the new readers and getting in there. And I think that a lot of times where they want to get free or do free things. Now it's a little bit different. Like I said to you, that was my biggest lesson at 37. And that was just my lesson in life, in that I was giving so much, especially in my career, anything I was giving, and I was not receiving because I didn't think I deserved it. It became a level of like, I don't deserve it. No, this is what I do. This is what I was meant for. And it goes so much further than that. It defines you in a level of you are hindering your own growth, but not allowing yourself to have value. Because as you
100%.
said, the more value that you make, the more you can give back to other people, and the more your gift is going to expand in levels that are like
You reach more
unfathomable.
people. You reach
Yeah.
more people. And I get to choose who I help, because I
Yeah.
will, and I still, every now and then I'll get the people, I call them the victims, who are like, I can't afford your rates and I did it. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, do you know, I always say, listen, I give a ridiculous amount away because I feel that I can. And I will continue to. And if that is not enough for you, I am so sorry that you feel this way. But guess what? It's just what it is. And so I've learned to just not even engage with them anymore. And so I don't really attract them anymore. But it doesn't mean that in the beginning, you can't exchange services with people, right? I exchange services with a lot of my friends. There's nothing wrong with that. But for crying out loud, if you're going to try to do this for a business, now, if you have millions of dollars in the bank and you want to do this as a side thing, like the guy that's the healer on TLC, he has tons of businesses. He doesn't charge. That's fabulous for him. Great. I don't see anything wrong with that. He is sustaining himself, right?
Yeah.
But if this is your thing and this is how you make your money too, to be of service, then charge your worth. And if you need to figure out what that is, then do the work.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a little different. Yeah. It's a whole new other episode. And it's also a little different depending on what you do. Like, I'm a huge barter person. I love bartering. I love trading and stuff, but my energy is a little bit different because I'm an agent. I am a person who likes to find the gifted and find the gifted for the right people. So, as Johanna likes to call me, the healer broker.
I know. I love that. And I swear I'm going to put it on her business card when she's not listening.
And I'm like, I hate that name. It sounds too financial.
But see, you know your energy. You bring up another good point, and this will go into another episode. I know people,
Yeah.
but we have to just talk about it. Is
Yeah.
the fact that this is boundaries and discernment of you knowing who you are and how
Yeah.
your energy works.
Yeah, it's so true.
You know when to give, what you can give, and how you can give.
But it's getting late. And I just want to thank Jody for coming on here. Jody, we got to have you on again. Maybe just on I would love to
Even
have
talk
Jody
about tea leaves. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Well, we're going to have a whole episode. I think we should have somebody who actually reads them. I think it would be really cool to have them. Jody, if you have any person who knows anyone who reads tea leaves or anything like that, let us know. But Jody, one thing that I would love to have you on is for the law of attraction, because you and I have talked about that and in huge ways. And we all know people who have felt the law of attraction. So that's something that's a completely different episode. But
I've been struggling with the law of attraction though, but
there's 30, my guides tell me there's 33 universal laws and they all work together. And we could just sit and just talk about how all of these laws are like mind blowing at certain extents.
I'm just wondering what I've been struggling with about that is it going against free will and am I blocking something? I mean, I know we always say this or something greater, and my friends do call me the manifesting queen, but
you really are.
But
Me
what's
too.
next?
Yeah, you and Johanna really are.
Yeah.
But for any of our guests who want to book Jody, we're going to put a link onto our page, and we'll also put a link on here in the live chat to her Mystical Blossoms link that you can actually book a reading with her. For our local friends here in New Jersey, Jody, I know that you are punching a date for in May. So what was that date again that you have at your studio?
I have May 29th. I'm pretty open, and then I'm booking also in June.
Right.
On Instagram and Facebook, I put out all the time like dates and times, and then people just DM me and I fit them in. But I also do phone readings or YouTube videos. And if you go to my Instagram, it's Mystical Blossoms. In the bio are my tarot links in there. So there's all kinds of like dates in there and stuff like that.
Really?
I love doing it.
And what was the card deck that you were using tonight? What was it called?
This one is the Morgan Grier deck, which is my spirit guide is Celtic, Gaelic. So, she loves like bright look tower.
There's that tower card.
Just in case people saw the decks and wanted to know what you were using, we could link to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first deck she was using was the Rider deck that we said was the beginner's deck.
Okay, good to know.
For people who want to know the more structural or the standard deck, that's the one to follow.
Okay.
All right.
This is my little mini travel deck.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, I'm serious. When you got a deck like this, like in your purse, it's for real.
I have a travel deck of just a deck of cards that are really, really tiny that a friend's his mom gave them to me. So I keep them in my purse, and those are the ones I use. Are like this size.
There you go.
Oh my God.
Those are the ones I keep.
Well,
funny.
It was a pleasure having you on and breaking down tarot and energy reading in general. I really loved how we ended tonight's episode, because we are going to attract, all walks of life. And there is a lot of people. We're in what the Palladians call the Great Awakening right now. And so people are waking up and they're thirsty. And the first thing people generally do is go to cards. So
so true.
Knowing this information is really good for people.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for allowing me to be here, and thank you for creating a beautiful sacred space for people. And I'm excited for you too, because I know you're going to manifest great things, and the world needs this gift that you're really giving people. So thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you. And just a heads up for episode 114, now that I know what episode we're on, 114 instead of 113. We are going to discuss next week urban legends, and we want to know what your guys' favorite urban legends are. And the more local, the better. We want to know, because we're going to do a poll of them and see which ones we want so that we can discuss them. So when you have a chance,
ask your nieces.
Well, my nieces have have a shitload. I'm sure they're watching this right now, like taking notes and
Like, oh, I'm waiting for my next Google Doc.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, Jody, you, my 11-year-old niece is very upset because she wanted to be the first guest appearance. And you had won it. So she's a little bit like, what? No, she wants to talk about Queen Mary the boat. But anyway, we're going to go over urban legends. So if there's anything that you guys have, please email us at circus@breakdownlive.com. We're going to put a little ad on Facebook too for you guys to be able to put shout outs on there.
Yeah,
So we
there's
can
some
get
really
some
good urban
information.
legends in my local area too. So you guys think
Yeah.
about where you live and those stories you hear and just submit it to us.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And thanks again, Jody.
Oh, thank you, girls.
Bye,
All right.
guys.
Bye-bye.